The MHA time skip continues. Class 1A becomes 2A, but then two massive twists at the very end of the chapter throw the entire story for a loop. Who is the mysterious crying man that was introduced at the end? And could he be Deku's father, Hisashi Midoriya? What is that strange futuristic machine that Endeavor is looking at? We need to talk about it right now. You guys, all this works if you enjoy my MHA videos and you want me to keep them going, leave a quick like and comment for that YouTube algorithm. And of course, subscribing on YouTube is completely free and it helps me out a lot, so please do me a big favor and subscribe. In the previous chapter, we saw the aftermath of the final battle of the war against the villains, the battle which led to the deaths of both All For One and Tomura Shigaraki. Japan was rebuilding after all the destruction brought on by the war, and we saw that many international heroes had arrived in Japan to help with the massive rebuilding effort. Thanks to the international heroes and thanks to all the many quirk users who were helping out, the rebuilding efforts were going much faster than expected, which is obviously a great thing. We also got to see how major characters like Deku, All Might, and Bakugo are recovering from their injuries. Bakugo's right arm is seriously injured and the doctor doesn't think it will ever go back to normal, but Bakugo is stubborn so he doesn't want to accept that. Deku is also injured and he now has a large scar on the right side of his face and head, and this led him to needing to adopt a slightly different hairstyle in order to accommodate the injury. We then had a moment in which Bakugo barged into Deku and All Might's room to see how they're doing, and he was upset to hear that Deku is now quirkless again because he wanted to keep competing against Deku and be his main rival for a long time. But Deku says that he still has the Ember of One for All inside him, so he will still be able to use the quirk at least for a little while, and he still plans to continue going to UA and becoming a hero. Near the end of that chapter, we got a glimpse of Ochako, presumably also in the hospital, and she is confirmed to be okay. The final page then led us into a longer time skip as Deku and the other students returned to UA to continue their schooling amidst ongoing efforts to rebuild the main UA building. The latest chapter continues this time skip, and it then launches us into an even longer time skip where we actually see Deku in Class 1A becoming Class 2A as a new school year begins. At the very end of the newest chapter, we also get two very mysterious twists that seem to indicate that the story isn't over yet, and that there are still some important plot points to be resolved. And we might be finally getting a resolution to the biggest unresolved plot point in the entire story, the true identity of Deku's father, Hisashi Midoriya, but more on that later, so stay tuned. The new chapter begins at the graduation ceremony, where the third-year students, including Mirio, Nejire, and Tamaki, are graduating and leaving the UA to pursue their hero careers. The graduation ceremony is late because of the war, but President Mike still intends to put on a great show to see the graduates off. A lot of the students are upset that their third-year senpais will be leaving the school now, and it seems that a lot of guys in particular are really going to miss Nejire. All the classes are there attending the graduation, and it's a really bittersweet moment. They are congratulating their senpais on graduating, but also on fighting bravely against the villains during the war and managing to survive such a brutal conflict. At the same time though, everyone knows that the third-year students will now be leaving, so they won't be at UA anymore. And if anyone's confused, the UA only has 3 years because high school in Japan only lasts for 3 years. I believe they have 3 years of middle school and then 3 years of high school. In many other countries, high school lasts for 4 years, so I know this might be confusing to some. We learned that the genius gerbil, Principal Nezu, has been working tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure that the UA and the rest of Japan is being rebuilt as quickly as possible. In case you forgot, Nezu is not only a genius inventor and tech guy, he is also a billionaire, so he has been using his many connections and resources to help out as much as possible. Honestly, I wish we got to learn more about Nezu and his backstory because he seems like such an interesting character, but at this point I don't think we're going to be learning more about him since things really seem to be wrapping up. The ceremony ends with a speech from graduating third-year student Mirio Togata. Mirio starts off with a serious speech where he thanks everyone for working so hard to defeat the villains, and where he reminds everyone that being a hero is a very difficult and often thankless job. Heroes often have to work extremely hard just to land right back at zero in the end. Everyone is surprised at first that Mirio isn't making jokes or being his over-the-top crazy self. But he does end his speech with an insane performance that involves a giant float bursting through the wall and through Mirio's body. The time skip then skips even further to the beginning of the new school year. Deku and Class 1A are now Class 2A, but they will still get to keep their homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Under normal circumstances, their homeroom teacher would change each year, but because this has been such an unusual time, the school decided to have Aizawa continue teaching the same class. I guess that after everything they've been through in their fights against the villains, they decided that Aizawa is the most capable of supporting the students and transitioning them back into normal school life. The students are glad to have Aizawa as their teacher again, and Mina is especially glad since she literally cries tears of joy after realizing that Aizawa will be teaching them. Bakugo has already rejoined the class, even though Sero thinks that he should still be at the hospital, and of course our boy Deku is already back in class and ready to start the new year. The same goes for Ochako, she is also recovered and back in class. But one student who is not coming back to class is Yuga Aoyama. He only comes on the first day of school to say goodbye to his old classmates because he decided to leave the UA. The other students try to talk him out of it, and they remind him that he did actually help them out a lot during the final battle by allowing them to split up the villain forces. Aizawa and Tsukauchi also told Aoyama that he could stay, but he decided that he needs to make amends. He didn't join the UA the fair way, he joined because All For One ordered him to attend, and presumably All For One also secretly ensured that he would get in, so Aoyama didn't necessarily earn it. Aoyama is determined to make up for what he did and to one day become a real hero who is worthy of returning to the UA. He then expresses appreciation for his friends and classmates before creepily offering Deku a piece of cheese yet again. We then learn that Aoyama's control of his lasers has been getting better and better over time. And I mean, this turn of events does make sense to me. Aoyama should have to face some consequences for being the UA traitor, even though we know that he was being threatened by All For One. He definitely had plenty of opportunities to approach the heroes and tell them the truth earlier, just like he did eventually when he got caught, and they could have done the same thing that they ended up doing anyway in terms of tricking All For One. But if Aoyama came forward sooner, they could have done the same plan sooner, and then Aoyama wouldn't have to put his fellow students in life-threatening danger over and over again. When his role as the traitor was exposed initially, I did think that everyone forgave him too quickly, so I like that he is taking responsibility and that he will be facing some consequences. Even though the consequences are self-imposed, everyone else seems like totally fine with just letting him go back to normal like nothing happened. We also learned that even though Class 2A is losing a member due to Aoyama's departure, it is also gaining a new member because Shinso will be officially joining the class. Aoyama is a bit peeved that he is already being replaced, and the resulting laser show ends up revealing Toru's face to the entire class. This nearly breaks Mineta, who can't believe that such a beautiful goddess was there beside them all along, and Aizawa has to restrain him and bring him back in line using his scarf rope thingy. Former second year and current third year student Mawata Fuwa then reveals that the second and third year students will be helping with reconstruction, and they will be traveling around the country to help fight crime as Japan works to bring order back to the country after all that chaos and war. After every major war, there can be a lot of upheaval, and with All Might now retired, there is no greater symbol of peace to keep everyone united and keep the villains in line. These are the kinds of conditions that led to the rise of All For One all those years ago, so all the heroes and hero students have to work hard to make sure that something similar doesn't happen again. At the end of the first day of the new school year, as the students are all talking about their responsibilities as upperclassmen, we finally see Deku actually talking to Ochako. She notices that the doctors had to partially shave his head in order to take care of the injuries that he had sustained, and she says that she hopes that his hair will grow back soon. The students then also make a joke about Tokoyami's hair being frizzier now, and we see Ochako smiling brightly as Deku looks at her a little cluelessly. And I mean, that's classic Deku, always confused and clueless instead of asking her out already. Come on man, we don't have many chapters left. Pull the trigger, you know you want to. Izuocha gang is on the edge of their seats right now. Then, all the wholesomeness of Class 2A is suddenly interrupted by some strange and mysterious panels. We see a crying man with long dark hair walking down the street. He seems to be wearing the kind of prisoner's jacket that Kurogiri was wearing while he was imprisoned by the police, and most of his clothes seem to have disintegrated. He is walking barefoot amongst the ruins of a war-torn city. Now, my first thought was that this is Kurogiri turned back into his human form. Somehow he must have survived, teleported to a random place, and become Oboro Shirakumo again. However, his hair does seem a lot darker than Shirakumo's was, so this might not be Kurogiri at all. It might be someone else. Perhaps someone who had been hidden away by All For One and the villains for all this time for some specific purpose, but now that the villains have finally been defeated, this man managed to break free from his imprisonment. There is a lot of speculation going on right now. Many are saying that this man could be Deku's dad, who was intentionally kidnapped by All For One because All For One knew who his son was, and he was planning to use Hisashi to get to Deku. I mean, I would love to learn anything about Deku's dad, and you guys know that. In the past, Horikoshi did say that he plans to reveal Deku's dad before the end of the manga, and with the manga seemingly ending very soon, when is he going to reveal him if not now? Nevertheless, we have to be cautious because this really could be someone else, like Oboro, but his hair color and appearance might have changed due to the fact that he was turned into an Omu. So yeah, this could be Oboro. He just ended up teleporting far away by accident. His head might be messed up, so that's why he hasn't contacted Mike or Aizawa or anyone else in months. And maybe his warp gate doesn't work anymore, so he can't just teleport his way around the country. So that's why he's walking around the ruins of some random city. Of course, this guy could also be someone completely different, not Oboro or Deku's dad, but someone else altogether. That said though, if this is a character we still haven't met, and he's not someone important like Deku's dad, then it leaves us wondering why Horikoshi would even bother to bring this guy into the story so late in the game when the manga appears to be ending. But if it does turn out that Oboro is actually still alive and that he reverted back to his human form, this will of course be great news for his old friends Mike and Aizawa. But if this is the case, it might also make a whole bunch of people mad, because then it means that even less people died during the final war, which takes away from the severe losses and consequences that you would expect from such a massive countrywide conflict. I mean, when you think about it, how many heroes actually died during the final conflict that we know of? Not counting Jakku, because that was the previous major conflict. Speaking of who died and survived, at the end of the chapter, the focus shifts to Shoto Todoroki, who indicates that he has some important duty to take care of later that day. In the very last panel of the chapter, we see a severely injured Endeavor in a wheelchair looking at some sort of strange futuristic device. It is not clear what exactly this device is from the image alone, but my guess is that it's some sort of experimental medical device that they are using to keep Toya Todoroki, aka Dabi, alive. This might indicate that Dabi also managed to survive in the end, and that there could be a way to heal him in the future. And if Dabi is still alive, and if even Oboro might still be alive, then what about Toga? We didn't get a firm confirmation that she was dead, only that she was in the process of dying, so who knows? Maybe she's not dead either. What do you guys think? Are Toga and Dabi still alive? And if so, will they be able to make a full recovery in the future? And I don't mean just a physical recovery, but also a mental recovery. Like, are they gonna be able to be reintegrated back into society? Or are they gonna be villains forever? Also, is Oboro Shirakumo still alive? And was he the mysterious man we saw crying and walking barefoot through those ruins? And if that wasn't Oboro, then who was it? And could it be Deku's dad? Will we ever find out anything about Deku's dad? Or is Horikoshi going to go back on his word and just refuse to introduce him before the manga ends? And if we do finally get info about Deku's dad, who do you think he will turn out to be? Will he just be a random dude who was working abroad, or will he turn out to be someone who is more important to the story? I've been hearing people saying that Deku's dad is actually the president of the United States, which if true would be kind of hilarious. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you're looking for an epic MHA video to watch next, check out this video ranking the top 13 strongest quirk gods in the entire series. Link on screen and in the description. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like to let me know. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. It is completely free and it helps me out a lot.